This is Propulsion, the podcast where we dive deep into the nitty-gritty of taking your business and your practice to the next level. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a franchisee, or a financial planning pro, you are in the right place. We're talking the latest tech, best practices, and expert insights, all while keeping it real and entertaining. So grab a coffee, sit back, and let's get ready to blast off. I'm your host, Francois de Toy. Hello, Russell. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Fantastic to have you. The last time I had you on was I posted actually a picture of that because you sent me a picture to say, oh, remember this one, when we did the podcast way back, it was in 2019. So I posted a picture on social to show like, this is where we were and this is where we are at now. And it's phenomenal to sort of see. I mean, I think you, if I may, Russell, like Russell was saying, like, look, I even look like an adult now. So, it's incredible how much has happened in the last 5 or 6 years. And it's really been great to see your journey, Russell. So happy to be talking to you this morning. Just very, very briefly for those who don't know, like I think everybody on this call, if I look at who's saying hi and all of that, will know a little bit about you and who you are, thanks to LinkedIn and places like that. But just share a little bit about you and sort of where do you work, in terms of like where you're based in South Africa and just maybe the main focus of your business, and then we can chat about the rest.
Okay, awesome. Just actually that flashback brings back a lot of memories. Obviously, as per what Francois mentioned earlier about dark mode and tech, you can see it's a bit dark here, but I've lightened up my face as much as I can. But I'm a certified financial planner and lifestyle planner coach as well. I've been in the industry for about now it's going into my 10th year. And I still remember that photo that I posted up, or Francois posted, with the flashback. That was about 5 or 6 years ago in April 2019. And I still remember I went and saw Francois at Krugersdorp, and then he was like, oh, I'm actually doing a podcast. Do you want to be like on episode 1? It's like, sure. I think from that, a lot has grown, and we've come a long way. And I currently operate with my whole team and my practice in Port Elizabeth. But 50% of our clients are out of PE. So we fully also embrace the digital landscape, especially prior to COVID and more so in COVID going forward. And we pretty much have been operating in financial advice and coaching since, and trying to really help the client at end. It's kind of making things, I would say, de-jargon forward, if I would call it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. I know, like, I think still on your socials, Russell, it's saying that, it's like removing the financial gibberish or something like that, for people. It's just making it simple. And that was always your thing that you've stuck to, over the years. But I'm really sort of keen to say what was it like for you when you just started out? Because I know, you didn't start off where you right now. You start off in a different business, and it was obviously a very different experience because the setup was very different. But what was that early days? Were there some specific challenges and things for you in those early days that you can still remember? Because sometimes our mind plays tricks on us that doesn't want us to remember how hard things were sometimes. Were they hard? Let me ask it that way. No, were they hard? And if they were, what were some of those challenges for you?
Damn. I feel old now when I think back that far. But 100%, when you asked me to do this podcast and you got me reflecting on a lot of the questions, I still think I'm young, but apparently I'm kind of like a veteran now, or going into veteran space. And I would say back then I was a young up and coming young professional, full of hopes and dreams. Straight out of varsity, BCom and postgrad financial planning, on my route to getting my CFP. And for me, I remember I had this perception idea of like how the finance industry would be, especially what contributed to that was like Suits just came out. And I started wearing a suit every day to work. I still do wear suits now, obviously for virtual consults or virtual chats. I kind of like go a little bit more casual. But I started wearing a suit every day to work. And I remember my first 3 years, and out of that, my first year was actually, I started out working for a mutual, the big green machine. And it was my intern year. Now, bear in mind, I came out of varsity. I was actually fairly introverted. I didn't have people skills. And I had just been watching, Suits, and my hero was like Harvey Specter all those years. I was like, you know what, I'm going to be the Harvey Specter of finance. Came in there, and I had this mentality idea of like what the finance industry would be like in the serious suits, and it completely was 180 degrees different. I think a lot of the challenges and how I started out was like it was difficult times, but at the same time, I think in my professional opinion, if I had to go back, I wouldn't change it for anything. The reason being is that you got to actually see how different the industry is or your profession is compared to what you taught in varsity and to see it now in the field. And more so, some of the challenges or difficulties that I face that I know a lot of young up and coming planners are facing still to this day is it's more of like the narrative that society and also like the industry puts you in, because you see both good and bad advice, and how things are run, and you're like, this isn't what I signed up for. A good, I would say, a common thing that I always talk to about peers is that when you start out in the first year, you on this journey, you're definitely going to help people, and that's what's driving you. And then you're exposed to this industry where there's a lot of policy selling or more sales, everything's sales focused, and you start realizing like, geez, okay, I'm getting this narrative or people are perceiving me as a policy salesman. And that can be very discouraging. So I think it's a lot of mental challenges from that point of view. And also when you start up, especially if you're new to the industry and you haven't had experience, you basically are thrown in the deep end and you're like, okay, go find yourself clients, build up a practice. Yes, you're part of a company now, but each and every financial plan and advisor there is basically building their own practice from scratch. And it's literally the hard grind. So I think what some of the challenges I had to face was that saying no to the box that society or the industry puts you in, because like as we grow up, you get put into boxes of what you should be, but you have the choice to say, am I going to conform to that, perspective or that box, or am I going to go against the narrative? And then secondly as well, you start kind of seeing how things are done and you start asking yourself, how can I do things better? And also part of the grind, I would say in the start, is that you learn how to work smartly, not just work hard.
I really like that. Sorry, Russell. The one of the things is that you just mentioned was sort of going against the grain or going against, what the norm is, etc. So I have a question
Mm,
around that. So does one do that? Because often they say if you want to really excel and you really want to do well, do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. So there's sort of people that are professing that kind of advice. But my question to you is, do you go against the grain, if you will, just because you want to go against the grain, or should you only do that when you are really convinced of something and it's really something that's important to you and it's sort of your authentic self, I would almost say, or is it a
mm.
strategy that that everyone should follow? So as everybody's doing this, I'm going to do this. So just maybe your view on that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I would say probably when you start out, and it won't take you long to realize that, you definitely do eventually go against the grain because you realize everyone is doing exactly things how they taught how to do. And when I started, this was before like social media and technology blew up that we have today. But it was basically when I started and I just came out of varsity. I met like 100 plus advisors who we were all working in this open plan office. And everyone back then to find clients, they were either phoning 100 to 200 cold calls a day, or they would out of the yellow pages or out off Gumtree, trying to offer free financial advice or free financial analysis. And I tried that for like a day or two, and I was like, this can't be the only way. Things have to be different. And one concept that I've always adopted since day one, and from that experience, is that I realized that not a lot of people are looking at it from that point of view. It's like, if you were the customer or the client or the consumer on the other end, how would you like to be approached? Who is someone from the first point of call, first point of communication, right? How would you be willing to trust someone with your finances, and more so because it's so personalized, open up? And also that's basically what gave me the feel of like, okay, I can't do this cold calling. I have to find another way of meeting clients and building up a rapport with clients so that they can trust me. You know, finance and personal finances especially is very personal in the sense we tend to think it's just about the numbers, graphs, and figures, but you don't realize, and even more so now, later in my career now, you don't realize how personalized it is because it's based on human behaviors, background, and past experiences, family habits, family upbringing. And a lot of times, if you think about it, most of our consumers or the general public, it's it's a bit embarrassing to admit when you don't know something about how to manage your money. And that's why the first step is always trying to think, okay, if I was a consumer, how would someone that I need help with my finances earn my trust? How would I like them to approach me? And how can I open up more to them? So that was always been my mindset with like always put yourself in the client or the customer's shoes instead of following what the crowd is doing. Because on top of that, if you think about it, when you cold call, imagine how many times that person's had a cold call, not only from like advisors at your company, but at every other institution. And then you have to think of like, what can I do differently? You know, so I would say that is what gave me the fuel to go against the narrative. And also at the end of the day, like I saw every client from a family perspective or philosophy of like, I'm not just helping a client, I'm helping someone's mother, father, grandparent, son, daughter make informed decisions about their lives so that they can live a better life and more importantly have peace of mind and be the soundboard. I'm not just out there to like sell a product. It was more of like you are buying a partnership with me and to be your human soundboard so that at least you have peace of mind and clarity of like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. And if I'm not doing the right thing, I have someone to give me clarity and guidance, on what my options are on my way forward.
Yeah, great stuff. So let's talk a little bit about postponing the immediate gratification thing, because I think that's hard for a lot of people. And you were very proud of what you've been able to do over the last number of years, putting things off, putting things off, putting things off, and you're able to do things that most people just can't. I guess it does depend a lot on your own circumstances and your own situation, etc. But I mean, there were some hard decisions that you've made. Can you talk us a little bit through what those were, and why was it important to you to have that long term view and to say, look, if I can postpone, then it'll work out. But I'm keen to sort of just first maybe talk about why did you decide to do, or what was the thing that was driving you to make that decision to put off, where people go out, they do a few big deals and they've got 6 great months and they go buy that car. So what was your take on that, and why have you done it the way that you've done it?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm human like every other person out there, and in my opinion, like I was also tempted. Especially come out of varsity and you study with your group of friends. Some have gone to become doctors, chartered accountants. Some have gone into investment banking and other professional careers. And what was tempting or hard was that you start off your career, and what people don't realize is that you know our whole model is generally commission based or fee based. There's no basic salary or normal fixed salary, as with most professions. So the biggest challenge that I think from a personal point was like you start your career, and within the next few years you don't realize that it's more of a long term view, because you don't realize like how challenging it is when you see your friends progress. Everyone's buying the nice car, the BMW, the Merc, the nice big house. People are going on lavish holidays, and that's where I feel like temptation and also um, the challenge of delaying instant gratification and putting off more for the long term view is when most people are challenged, because especially now more so with social media, you get into the bit of like comparing yourself to others, and you think, okay, if I'm not driving a new sports car, right, then I'm not progressing. And also a big thing is about like the image that comes with, especially for a lot of us as young professionals. When you start out in industry, you obviously want to show that you're doing well and you're successful. And we tend to give into that of like, okay, I want to appear successful and like give into that instant gratification. But then the long term view of probably for me that I saw that made me decide against that. And if some of you saw my post, I was tempted to buy an Audi when I wasn't like financially able to and not in the right mind to. Was that from a long term point of view? I was like, I don't want to. For me as a person, yes, I could also do, give bad advice and do unethical deals just to get high commission. But then for me, it was always like, could you sleep sound at night knowing that you've done someone in and you've also kind of gone against your ethics of like, you've told the client enough from meeting, like, I'm here for your interest, but you've recommended a solution that benefits you. And my long-term view also with that, and it paid me back tenfold over the years, was that I would always put the client at the focal point and the center of everything because I would be focusing on building that long-term relationship. Imagine how nice it is, and most of our clients are like that, is that we started with them when they just left varsity, and now we with them where they have families, they bought property, and their careers have grown. And a client will always hold that to you of like, they'll appreciate that so much because you realize that they are so used to being treated as a number, only seen for like their net worth and how much they earn. They're not seen for their actual individuality and them as a person and my needs. So I think long term wise, when you're not focused on the money or trying to make as much commission or deals off a client, you don't realize that you're also creating future opportunities and future deals and future earnings in the future with that client. But not just that client, you're also creating future referrals from that client because that client will talk about you to like their friends and family around the bribe, like, wow, so and so, or I went and saw Francois, and for the first time, and I actually remember I had these experiences. I said for the first time, it feels weird because you were so transparent and honest, and you didn't sell me anything. You were just generally there to help me. So in my opinion, I think that's the biggest reward I've gotten from delaying instant gratification of like, oh, I'm just going to push the biggest deals now and focus on now, and rather benefit instead over the long term. And I think the other point I just want to add quickly before I jump back to you is that in that environment where you're working with so many advisors, you also see old advisors that are there before you. And a good question to ask is like, can I see myself at that point in 10 or 15 years? And a lot of those advisors, with respect, that were focused on commission, that were there for a lot more years than I was. They were so stressed when it came to end of the month because the advice or the need wasn't fully addressed to the client and they were focused more on the deal. They had the worry like, oh, what happens if some of the stuff lapses and I have to pay back the commission? And I was like, I want to build a more sustainable practice where people know that I have their genuine interest at heart and it's purely focused on the client.
Oh, fantastic. While you're talking about your practice, let's talk a little bit about your business, because like this is not a case of. I think one thing that I want to make clear that is it's definitely not a case of that you sort of have gone this way because you're not earning revenue in your business. It's just got nothing to do with that.
Mm.
This is just a conscious decision that the long game is more important than the short game. So it wasn't just about chasing numbers and targets and things like that. This is about adding value over the long term and over the long term benefiting from that, doing the right thing for the right reason with the right intent, like that's always the thing. And that's what I get from what you're doing. So building your practice, you're more in an independent setup at the moment, and you're building your practice like you're building your own, like a business, obviously. So what are the things that you are focusing on? Because one of the things that you did also mention that you're very proud of is the fact that you didn't borrow money, you didn't go into debt, you didn't you don't have an overdraft, credit cards, things like that, in order to have funded the business to invest. In other words, to take the bank's money, for lack of a better person to pick on, their money to invest into your business and to grow your business. So talk me a little bit through how you have gone about building your practice and specifically investing back into your practice. And I mean that's a very wide question, but let's just start off in general. So I'm not really talking about what you invested into yourself. I'm interested to hear what are you investing, what have you been investing into the business in order to get to where you are right now.
Okay, great. So one thing that we've been investing a lot into our business is more into our tech and our tools. A big thing that I'm sure as a lot of you as planners as well are experiencing, and also to those who ever are running their own businesses in their careers, is that you find as you get older, you value your time more, and you want to find ways to like leverage your time more. They always say like in the beginning when you're just starting out, it's easy to say yes to everything because you're not so busy or there's not so much high demand for you. But then the more challenge is that as you progress in your career and your business and your profession over time, the most productive hack they always talk about is not trying to find ways to constantly optimize things, but like the most basic productive hack is learning to say no to things that aren't feeding your goal or feeding to where you want to progress or where you want to take your practice. So I think just to also answer that, like over time and even before COVID, not that we were expecting something like that to happen in all the years, it also comes from that you are your own business owner and we don't get like our own fixed salary every year and every month since day one. I've always, wherever I could, invest or reinvest most of my paychecks back into investment accounts and into interest-bearing accounts for the business. And it was more so of like, okay, if something happens, like kind of in a sense, giving yourself basic financial planning. We need to do what we preach, um, or live what we preach. Is that I was backed up into like my mentality of like, okay, over the long term, I want to build this practice and I want to scale it and I want to have a team of people. And I never want to have to ask for a loan or be under pressure from debt. So my first notion was like, firstly, okay, Russell, you run a commission or fee-based practice, there's no salary. What happens if you have months where, you don't bring any business or your production is low or the amount of cases that are brought in are minimal and you don't make enough commission or fees to carry you through and cover your living expenses, then what? Or what happens if there's a period when you can see there's an opportunity to hire more people, like what I've done recently, or there's a period where you want to invest in new tech that's going to speed up stuff, speed up the processes of your practice. But now you don't have the capital available, and now you might need to, borrow money from the bank. And for me, that was always my concern. It was like in the beginning of my career, I was like, those days are going to come because your practice is not going to stay the same. You're going to obviously keep pushing and trying to grow it, and you're going to want to leverage your time more so that you are spending your time on things that are driving and growing the business, not just working in the business. And you want to have the capital available so that you won't have the additional pressure of like debt. So that's what I started doing. I started investing each paycheck 75% at, if I could, into investment accounts. It also taught me part of delaying instant gratification of like, as a human, just put it in an investment account, don't look at it, just consistently do it over time and let it, compound and do its work. And that's where I would say now I've gotten to a point where I'm able to scale. I was able to hire people last year as well. We've been investing in tech, and especially came in handy during COVID, where we went fully digital with a lot of our clients. So we invested a lot in tech to automate things. We've also invested a lot into like a marketing into our brand. And in addition to that, like I think as a person or as a business owner, in the day, the biggest benefit is having peace of mind and no financial anxiety. Like I've got a I've got 6 months of my expenses covered. So it gives me time I can focus on other aspects of the business. I don't have to push for clients so hard. And also at the same time, over all the years when you have and you do those measures in place, it takes stress over you as depending on whatever tied or financial advisor environment you're working in. Of like, I don't have to drive or chase business for the point of just making money. I can work at my own pace. I'm not forced to sell. So it gives you that freedom as well.
Yeah. And also, then the other thing is, I'm just standing here thinking that a lot of young financial advisors and planners are sort of new and they're finding it really, really hard. There's always somebody out there who's doing things that more experienced advisors are doing and they're getting it right. And you're one of those people for me. There's, I don't know what it is, but it's definitely something that, when you really set your mind to it, you can make it happen. The question is whether you are patient enough for it to get there, because it's going to take long. It's going to be slow. It's a slow burn, and then it was like slowly, and then suddenly it'll just happen. It almost feels like, okay, where you now like happened overnight, but there's been quite a long time where it felt like very little was happening. So that's important. Russell, I just want to quickly ask, we've got a couple of minutes. The From a personal development point of view, you've done a lot. The one thing that always stood out, like when I met you, the one thing that I liked, you were talking to a lot of people and you were asking here and asking there. And I know you were having coffees with Kobus, and you and I had conversations. You're very involved in the things that Dirk and them are doing as well. So, I mean, we see you everywhere, and you're always like a sponge, and you connect with people overseas via LinkedIn. Like, you do all these weird and wonderful things. I want to know from you, maybe what are the top two or three things, very, very shortly, that has made the biggest impact on your career and your practice, of all of those things that you've done. Maybe what are the top three things that you say, well, I should have done more of those, maybe because this has had the biggest impact, or maybe it was just a once-off thing that just had a massive impact.
Mm. Wow. Okay. So if I think about it now, probably a big thing for me has always been, and I would say like we treat our practice this way. We always say internally like we in R&D or research and development. I guess the formal term that we keep using in our industry is like we consistently doing CPD or continuous professional development, and a lot of us think it's only just for us individually, but you should also do it for your practice as well. Is that find a good set of people, and I'm not being paid for this, but like the LP group with Dirk, Lifestyle Financial Plan. If you really care about your clients, it's really nice. It's a safe space. And I remember Dirk sent me a DM like in my second year, a LinkedIn DM in my second year when I was on Mutual. It's like, I'm starting this group, with Simon and one or two other guys. Do you want to come through? Do you want to join us? I know you're on LinkedIn. So that has grown phenomenally well and it's become a safe space. So find your people, your tribe, because this journey can be like very lonely, and sometimes you just need someone to like hear your pleas, whether it's good or bad or your experiences, and ask them for like their input so that you're not alone, and also some guidance, and advice also on like how to handle those situations. So yeah, treat everything like R&D, research and development. You learn and you hear feedback from people, and also bear that in mind. Like you can take input from everyone, but you decide like what you decide to use, and don't be afraid to trial and test it with clients in your practice. I think that's another big thing that people don't do enough, is like you listen to so many podcasts, you read so many books, read so much course material, do so many courses. At the end of the day, a big differentiator of whether that material is useful or valuable to you and like your business and your career is like, okay, let me try it out. Is it practical? Is it going to help my business? Like linking it to the tech thing of like, we spend so much money on tech, but then my question always is like, okay, like how does this enhance the ability of what I'm doing now and also save time, but more so add more value to the client, give them more clarity and peace of mind. So you have to think of like practically, how does the knowledge and the people that I mix with add value to me, but also use it. And then secondly, I would say just lastly as well is that don't be afraid to ask questions as well and test your theories. Um, and more so, don't, embrace the suck. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. I use the analogy of gym. There's no bad experience or no bad move. Every day you are doing reps and you're putting reps into the gym or into your practice. And people only compare themselves when they see super successful people like Corbus. I'm still progressing, but like Corbus, Dirk, and all that. You don't realize professionals like that have been putting in reps for the last 10 years, and they've learned from their mistakes every day of like, okay, this has worked, I can do this better. And that's how you actually find success and reach your passion.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Russell, thank you very much. We're out of time. There's a lot more that I want to talk about. So maybe you and I should chat about a special on in propulsion, but I'll chat to you. So thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for what you're doing. I'm going to talk about the comments just now when we end here. So do stick around because there's some phenomenal just comments there. And Russell, thank you very much. Keep on doing the good work. And we love to see people excel and grow and be successful, and also to see how they move through the different phases in their career, and as new things come along their way, how they react to it and sort of how they learn from it and get better. And, it's just amazing. So keep doing the work. We really love watching you. And yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Fransha.
Fantastic. Alrighty, so let's see some of the comments that have come in for specifically on Russell's one. So Kobus was saying that young man with an incredible career, he's really inspirational, right? Because like he just keeps going and keeps doing what he says he's going to do. So that's fantastic. Liana is saying, yeah, treat your practice like you would treat a client or yourself. Which is directly linked to what I think Russell was saying. Terence says this profession is better because of people like Russell. Fantastic. Dirk is saying a great example of self-belief and tenacity. I think that tenacity and just sticking to your guns. Well done, Russ, he says. Neil Phillips, very sage advice, Russell. You are wise beyond your years. And we've got Karina also on here saying, Russell Ho is such an inspiration to young people starting in the industry. This is a great interview for my daughter considering getting into this industry. Fantastic. And on that note, that's it. Thank you very much for being here. A lot of people were very skeptical that people were going to show up today, and I was very confident that we will have a lot of people, and we had. So thank you very much for taking the time. If you've taken a long holiday or not, thank you for spending your time this morning with us. We really appreciate it. Remember to go check out the tech event. The links are down below in the description. And with that, have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, be blessed, prosper, and continue to raise the bar. Love you lots. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that's a wrap for this episode of Propulsion. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Remember to tune in every Friday at 8 a.m. South African time for our live show called Propulsion Live. You can find it at www.propulsion.co.za/live. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, hit that subscribe button or the follow button and share it with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else you think would get something out of it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.